Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to talk about why we named this series Less Than 10 Seconds to Survive Loss of Control in Flight. I think you're going to find it very interesting because it's not randomly selected. It's actually based on research. So remember, as a pilot, are you prepared to deal with an unexpected airplane upset event on its way to a fatal loss of control in flight accident? That's always the underlying question, so let's jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get to this rationale as to why we named this series Less Than 10 Seconds to Survive Loss of Control in Flight. It's based on Boeing and NASA research on a concept called the critical window back in 2004. And what they did is they investigated 6 real transport category loss of control in flight accidents to determine what were the underlying aerodynamic factors that determined when the airplane was upset and when it was truly out of control. And what they came up with were these concepts or these envelopes called Quantitative Loss-of-Control Criteria. And the 5 envelopes are right there in the slide. The first one is adverse aerodynamics, which is measured due to alpha and beta, angle of attack and side slip. The next one, which you're likely more familiar with, is unusual attitude, defined as a pitch or a bank. So we know, for example, an unintended flight condition of more than 25 degrees nose up, 10 degrees nose down, or 45 degrees of bank technically meets the definition of an airplane upset, meaning whatever you're doing before, if that's unintended, bring your focus to get it back into the heart of the envelope. The third one down is structural integrity. That could be at high airspeed, okay, creating structural integrity challenges, or it could be on load factor on the airplane. The fourth one is dynamic pitch control, which essentially means the airplane is pitching one way while the pilot is trying to pitch it another way. Okay, it's an indication of potential loss of control in flight. And the final one, dynamic roll control, roll input. The airplane is rolling one direction, the pilot is counter rolling, and it's not fully arresting or arresting at all, the rolling condition. So the idea behind this process is the fact, how much time do you have from the occurrence of the first envelope to the third one? Because they found when there was 3 existing at the same time or more, the airplane is now truly out of control, and it's unlikely, no matter what the pilot does, it's going to be able to influence the outcome of likely a fatal loss of control in flight accident. So it defines the transition from airplane upset to true loss of control in flight. And so I think the big concept there that's going to come up later in our discussions is that there is a point before the actual crash where the pilot, either due to skill sets, altitude, time, or simply aerodynamic limitations, is unable to affect the final outcome, the ultimate consequence of the fatal loss of control in flight accident. We want to take action prior to that when we're still in control, which is before the occurrence of the airplane upset. Because remember, the best recovery in the world is never being there in the first place. But should you encounter an upset, take immediate action while you're still in control to get the airplane back into the heart of the envelope. Okay, so let's take a look at the data that they found. Critical window, time from the first to the third envelope. Okay, we talked about that just a minute ago. Here's what they found in those 6 accidents. The range observed varied from 2 seconds to 16.9 seconds. The average was just 7.6 seconds, which is clearly less than 10 seconds. Median 6.5. Upper quartile, the highest number that we could determine, about 8.35 seconds. But most importantly, even though it was limited to 6 events, it was a very detailed analysis. 5 of those 6 events were less than 10 seconds from the upset to the condition of defined loss of control in flight. So the common pattern is really interesting in these analyses. And again, it's a small data size, just 6 events, is that they found that the lateral upset was the most common one due to roll control saturation, resulting in either a stall or an overspeed flight condition. So very interesting when you think about that. Now remember, this is in the transport category environment. In general aviation, business aviation, corporate executive, military, it can be different, but that's just one of the findings I thought you'd find interesting. So the implication of this research leading us to name the event this is that pilots typically have less than 10 seconds to recognize and recover before reaching an irrecoverable loss of control in flight state. So think about that. We need to take the initial action. Now, it doesn't mean the entire recovery needs to be done in 10 seconds, but we have about 10 seconds to take initiatory action to start mitigating the development of the airplane upset. So we can expand the window of 10 seconds by that first correct input, but we can also shrink it by the first incorrect input. So it's really important to get into the details on this. So less than 10 seconds to survive loss of control in flight is directly derived from this research by NASA and Boeing. We thank them for this research. It is so insightful, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun as every time you hear the name of the series, hopefully you're going to think back on this research in this video, and certainly share it with folks, because we always get asked, why are you calling that less than 10 seconds? I absolutely have more time than that. Well, depends how you define what you mean by time and when. And that's the exciting part about this conversation in this series. It's just such an interesting topic. There's so many dimensions to it. I'll see you in the next video.